What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Clowns podcast. I'm your host, Meej, once again joined by Rox Lewis. Rox?
Hey, Meej, big day in the NFL, cut day. Looking forward to the start of the season, man.
Yeah, and I say we jump right into it, but first I'm going to ask everyone to leave a like, a comment what you want next, and even consider subscribing, as it would mean a lot to me and the channel. Now, moving into this, we're mainly here to discuss Cam Newton being released from the New England Patriots and the impact that it's going to have on the league and fantasy as a whole. Now, Rox, what are your immediate thoughts about this decision?
I mean, it is what it is, Cam Newton's obviously not his MVP self. He's not what he once was. And Mac Jones, he's the future of this franchise, so why not make the move now?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, and coming out of the draft, Mac Jones was a shaky pick, right? That's just what people thought. But it turns out that Bill Belichick and company knew what they were doing once again, and he's shined in the preseason. Now, looking at this from a fantasy standpoint, I think this sends Damien Harris's stock through the roof, as he's now officially going to get all of the goal line work. Now, Rox, where would you put Damien Harris in your rankings for fantasy this season?
I still have him in the same spot, I think, before Mac Jones got the job. Listen, Harris is going to get more goal line carries, obviously, now that Cam Newton's gone. But, Damien Harris is still Damien Harris. Mac Jones being there isn't going to change anything. Mac Jones will probably open up the pass game a lot more, too, because Cam Newton had a bad arm. I could see stock of guys like Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Jacoby Myers raising because of this news, and I'm excited to see what they can do in fantasy this season.
And I'm going to have to agree with you on that. Aside from the Damien Harris thing, I'm pretty hot on Damien Harris, especially now with the Cam Newton news breaking. And another player I'm hot on, as you mentioned, is Jacoby Myers. I think he's a great route runner. He's great at separating, and I think that Mac Jones is only going to increase his fantasy production and upside. Now, another player in the Patriots offense we have yet to talk about on the podcast is Jonnu Smith. Now, Jonnu Smith was a viable option last season for the Tennessee Titans before he went down with an injury. Where do you think he could be this season, Rox?
Yeah, I can see Jonnu Smith being a top 10 tight end in fantasy points like he was last year. Listen, he's reliable. He's going to get you points in the week if you need it. He's always good for like 8 to 10, it seems like, and he'll possibly get you more. He's good in the red zone. He's good for targets. He's good for receptions. Just a guy I want on my team. See, the only catch on Smith this year is that Henry's also there, so that could take away his receptions. It could take away his targets. It could also take away, most importantly, his red zone targets, which is huge for fantasy. So I'm still iffy on Jonnu Smith. You could take him. You couldn't. It is what it is, but Mac Jones is definitely going to help him.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on that. And another thing, I guess we're going to talk about pros and cons. A con with Hunter Henry is that it seems like he's always hurt. He's a very talented tight end. We've seen him flash with the Chargers. Every time I faced him, he's destroyed me in weekly fantasy. But staying healthy obviously seems to be a challenge for him. But moving on, another addition from the offseason into the Patriots offense is wide receiver Nelson Aglor. Now, it seemed on the Raiders last season that he was doing pretty well. He was scoring touchdowns. It seemed like he was one of the main targets in the offense, aside from Darren Waller, obviously. But it did seem like he broke out last season quite a bit. And, Rox, what do you think we can expect from him this season?
Look, I don't expect much from Nelson Aglor this season, but if he could be what he was in 2017 in Carson Wentz's big year when they won the Super Bowl, I think that's a great piece to have on your fantasy bench and a guy that can give you some nice points when you need someone. Look, he showed flashes last year of being his former self, just flashes at times in the Raiders offense. If he could be just 75% of what he was, that's quality points to have on your team.
I agree, especially in deeper leagues, because there's several wide receiver options you could go with, and I think Nelson Aguilar is a pretty decent one. And plus, you never know what Bill Belichick has up his sleeve. I mean, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time for a reason. He seems to know just a little bit more than everyone else, and it always seems like he's succeeding. Now, with Nelson Aguilar, we're gonna have to see how that plays out, but I think it's time to talk about Mac Jones. I mean, I view him as a solid QB2 at the moment. I think we're going to have to see how the Patriots offense develops this season. I mean, he is a rookie quarterback, but I wouldn't mind selecting him as my QB2 in any draft format. Now, Rox, what are your thoughts on Mac Jones entering this season?
See, I disagree with everything you just said. I'm not touching him in any of my fantasy leagues. I just don't think he's going to be a guy that gets you points. Yeah, maybe he'll win you games in the NFL, but if we're talking fantasy, he's not going to get you points. I could see a low 200 yards per game, maybe like one touchdown pass, maybe an interception every game. I'm not touching him in any of my fantasy leagues. He's not a QB2. Even if I'm running 3 QBs on my team, which is stupid, I'm not even touching him.
All right, and that's why we have you. We got to give several opinions in this podcast to help as many people as we can. I appreciate you coming on, Rox. Thank you for the analysis, and I think that's a good place to call it today. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope this information helped. Thank you, Rox.
No problem, Meech.
I'm going to ask you guys to leave a like on the video, maybe a comment what you want to see next. I'm going to be putting out some interesting fantasy stuff coming this week, as it is the biggest draft weekend of the year. And please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for tuning in.